Hey everyone, it's Thomas here. You see, a while ago I posted on my community page asking people to rush out to buy the Polk 703. What happened is that I got my hands on one thanks to a friend of mine, and within a few minutes trying it, I'm like, wow, these are very, very good speakers. At 400-ish, well, because it was on special, it's a no-brainer. So I tell people on my community page to rush out and buy it. And by the way, you know, I don't ask people to subscribe on my channel, but on second thought, maybe I should, because some of you missed the deal because of that. And in the future, I'll be putting little comments here and there on my community page. For example, how this speaker 707 compared to, let's say, the RP8000F Klipsch. No, I'm not going to make a whole video on it, so I might just put a simple note in on my community page. So in that sense, if you're curious on the little things I want to talk about, make sure you hit the notification button if you do subscribe. So back to the story. When I posted up that message asking people to go buy the Polk 707 and 703, people were asking me, hey, how does it compare to this speaker, that speaker? And my response was, imagine Focal Sopra 2 at $16,000 go on special and sell at $4,000. You drop everything and you rush out and you go get it, because Focal Sopra 2 is a great speaker. Even if it's not to your taste, you still should give it a try, especially if you can return it for free. So when the 707 went on special, you know, the MRSP, I think it was about 4,000. It dropped to 1,002. Now that's not the time to ask questions. That's the time to act. So that was my advice. So to help me evaluate these speakers, I had 6 of my audiophile friends over. And these are audiophile friends who have very high-end gear. So for them to sit through and listen to a speaker that is retail at, well, right now 1,002 on special, it's a challenge. You want to win over 6 audiophiles, okay, with very high-end gear at their home. It's a challenge. So I'll give them nicknames so it's easy to follow. So if I have to reference them, it's easy. So first I have Mr. Turntable, because just his turntable and phono stage is about $20,000. So he's really into that. Then I got Mr. Focal Cantor, because he owns a pair of Focal Cantor. Then I have Mr. Multi-System, because he owns probably 20, 30 systems. And the speakers he owns are all like the hottest thing on the market. Then I have Mr. Guitarist. He does video editing. He plays the guitar. Very, very good ears. And he has a very good understanding because he does a lot of editing. Then I have Mr. Quad, because he owns a pair of Quad, and you've seen videos of his place already. And finally, I have Mr. DIY. So if you go to the website and look at these speakers, and just by looking at the interior design, you know that this is not a cheap speaker. 4-way, and you know, have multi-cabinets inside. And TJ from another YouTube channel actually took it apart and show us how the drivers look like inside. I'll put a link to his video. So if you're curious, you know, what kind of quality drivers they use, go check out his site. So Polk Audio, when we think of Polk Audio, I guess we always think about home theater speakers that you find at Best Buy. And in fact, recently I have somebody email me. So what happened is that I sold him a pair of speakers. I guess I shouldn't name that speaker then. It was about 6,000–7,000 retail, that pair of speakers. And eventually I put up my Focal 936 for sale, and he emailed me back and he said, hey, you know what about the Focal 936? Because, you know, the other speaker you sold me, the $7,000 one, no, it's a bit bright on the top end. The bass, you know, I wish it has a little bit more impact. It goes very low though. It has quality bass, just not quantity. And he said, is the 936 a good speaker to replace that speaker? And I wrote back, I said no, because 936 is also very bright on the top end. When it comes to bass, it's quick, it's fast, it's agile, but there's not a lot of impact. So that's not your solution. So I told him, go to Best Buy, go check out a pair of 707. And he wrote back and say, huh? Polk audio? Is that for stereo listening? I can't blame him for thinking like that, but I actually recommended him to go check these out, because for me, I know the problem of that high-end speaker I sold him, and for me, this was a good solution. So I'm going to get into the caveats right away, and then we'll move on to the positive. So I'm going to judge it as a $4,000 speaker. Now it's important that I clarify this, is because when I talk about bass is good on a $4,000 speaker, it's very different than bass is good on a $40 speaker. So areas of opportunities. In terms of transparency, it can be better. When it comes to sharpness and clarity, there's a gap between these kind of speaker and speakers with metal bass dome tweeter like Focal, for example. Now, my Focal Cantor friend prefers speaker like Focal because it's more detailed and refined. If I have to say, one of the weakness of these speakers is that they're not as refined. Now, it is not necessarily a negative, because with these Polks, you have less chance of getting listening fatigue due to the speakers being too bright. Next, instrument separation is so-so. Soundstage is okay. This could be because of my room. Now, as I said, problem with speakers that have a lot of low-end bass, which these have, is instrument separation is usually affected. So bookshelf speakers tend to disappear easier. They tend to image better, and I'll cover that in my Klipsch RP600M versus RP8000F review. So I won't go into details here. So finally, in my room, these massive speakers, they don't disappear. It's you'll know that they're there. However, this issue I have is not unique to these speakers. You know, my other speakers, big speakers, also have this problem. My DIY friend, in fact, suggested me to bring it over to his place to try, as his room is way bigger than mine and better treated. And to be honest, if I were a bit younger, I might actually do it, but I'm too old for this now. These things are 110 pounds, 118 pounds. Yeah, try moving these speakers during winter time, and just let me show you a shot of first snow here in Montreal. Now, before I talk about how it sounds, I want to share how my friends felt when they first heard this speakers. You see, we can talk about speaker in relative terms, meaning that, you know, how it sounds for the price, or we can talk about it in absolute terms. Does it sound good? Period. What sounds good, as a minimum, is different for everyone, because we all have different experiences. If you only listen to $10,000 plus speakers daily, your threshold is very different than somebody who listens to $10 speakers daily. All my audiophile friends agree. These speakers sound very good. So my turntable friend, within first 30 seconds of listening to these speakers, turned to me and said, you know what, you should buy them off Polk Audio. In fact, he wants it for himself. And when I asked him why, his reply was for his future home theater room upstairs. Now, he recognized the fact that he will never get this kind of performance for this kind of price once the sale is over. He will buy it just to put it on the side until he's ready to build his home theater room. Now, my Focal Cantor friend mentioned that it is incredible how amazing today's budget gear sound. In fact, he even mentioned, you know, people selling high-end speakers will have a hard time going forward if you can get this kind of performance at this kind of price. So next, my guitarist friend and my multi-system friends, they were quite impressed at how these speakers scale when I move from budget gear to high-end gear, and this I will cover a bit later on. And they were biased against these speakers to start off with, because they heard another pair of speakers that I used to own that has also these what I call racetrack drivers, right? These oval drivers, and they were not impressed. So they were thinking these speakers would be it would perform something like the other pair of speaker I had, and yeah, they were pleasantly surprised. You know, these speakers, the Polk, sounded way better. And finally, Mr. Quad and Mr. DIY, they were impressed with how the drivers integrate. And tonally, they thought it was very good also. So how these speakers sound? Now, they have a slightly laid-back presentation. Some would call it dark or warm side of neutral. I find it slightly dark like my focal friend, because me and my focal friend we like sparkling metal bass dome tweeters, and but my other friends found it just right, the tweeter. The top end for them is not bright or harsh. Well, actually it is not bright or harsh for all of us. If you point the speaker straight out, it is neutral, and to some it might even be considered very smooth. Now if you point the speakers towards you, if you toe them in, there are times where it can be a little bit shouty. Now, I think it's because it can get pretty energetic, the top end. I don't want to use the word bright or sibilant because it's nothing like the brightness found with metal bass dome tweeters. You know, on second thought, it is not really dark because it is not rolled off and it is extended and detailed enough. You see, rolled off and dark, sometimes you try so hard to hear the details. These are not like that. I guess they're just not bright. So if I were to compare to metal or ribbon speakers like Monitor Audio, it just does not sparkle or sound as analytical. So it's more musical, where you have more tendency to listen to the music than to analyze the music. The mid-range is clear, full sounding, a little bit warm, but that can be due to the mid bass being very strong. Now it's not a forward sounding speaker, the kind like Klipsch that will push itself onto you. As I mentioned before, lay back. Now bass is where this thing really shines, strong, impactful, and it goes deep. Decent bass definition, tight bass, and it is not a slow sounding speaker. In fact, if I were to be frank, this is what I call a man speaker, as opposed to many of the bookshelf I own, which relatively speaking is like a kid speaker.
This is a man. A handsome, muscular man. I'm muscular. But who are you?
Regarding soundstage, most of us found it big enough, except my quad and DIY friend. Now it's possible partially quads are known to have insane large soundstage, or possibly my room does not have the width and the height to let these speakers shine. So guys, my advice is don't be greedy. If your room is small, get the Polk LSIM 703 or the 705. So what I like most about these speakers, they sound confident. Now this is important because many floor standing speakers I own don't have the confidence of these speakers. A lot of time speakers can sound harsh because of compression. You know, like a little kid yelling. You'll hit high dBs, but those speakers distort. These speakers with good electronics sound effortless. In short, many floor standing speakers don't have that oomph of this speaker, and that includes some $9,000 speakers I've owned. Also, because of the inert cabinet, I think the whole presentation is quiet. When I change from the Klipsch RP8000F to these speakers, I can feel everything quieting down. Now Klipsch is fun and happy, but these feel calm, solid, and it's like time to be serious. It is a balanced speaker in the sense that the drivers are coherent. Four-way design, but it blends well. Nothing jumps out and feels out of place, and that is despite having very strong bass. Finally, I find it sound good at high volumes, but also at low volumes. You see, a lot of times at low volumes, like bookshelf speakers, bass is non-existent. But not with these. You still feel the weight of the bass even at low volume. So to summarize, I think these speakers are well-rounded and good for all kind of musics. I do want to stress though, with classical, you do need the space for them to shine. At my place, we try different pieces, many different pieces at different days, different setup, and some worked well and some did not. When it sounded good, it's something all audiophiles should experience. They have the ability in terms of power to deliver the performance. You just need the room. I know I've been talking about the bottom end because it's really, really good. But the truth is, even the top end is no slouch. It's actually also very good. You just don't have that sparkling detail, as I mentioned before, but for some, it's actually a better thing. So now I'm going to share with you what different front-end equipment I try with these speakers, because it's very interesting. And I purposely, with some of my friends, start with very budget speaker, and I wanted to show them the progression. What happens when I go next level up? because in the beginning they were like, okay, I mean, these sounds okay. I started with the Sprout 100, I started with the Cambridge SR20 Topaz, and it's okay, right? It's just like a regular 1,000-ish pair of speakers. It sounded okay. Now it started to seriously sound good now once I put it with the IOTAVX, the SA3 and the PA3. In fact, I think this will work for a lot of people if they have it very close to a wall, because as you know, the IOTAVX is tuned to be neutral, so it's not really bass heavy, but you also have the tone control that you can play with. So with the IOTAVX, you're starting to enter the territory where it sounds very decent. In fact, I would say your minimum requirement is the IOTAVX SA3 and PA3 if you want good performance from these speakers. Now, for me, I think the sweet spot, I mean, the best part for money-wise versus return is when I add in the Musical Paradise tube DAC that I have. And by the way, it's a good DAC. I have also all my audiophile friends listen to it, and it is a great DAC. And with this DAC, you can feel like there's more richness to the sound. Things are more rounded off. It's less quote-unquote aggressive at times, and overall, it's definitely more musical. I think with this combo and with these speakers, so if you start doing the math, about what, 2,400, 2,500 is one of the best combination out there that you can get. So when Sprout moving to the IOTAVX combo, you're talking about one step up, okay? Once you add in the Musical Paradise, you're talking another level up. Okay, we did try different cables with it. I even had this lamb cord. I think this is lamb cord. It's either that or it's a vintage power cable that we use as speaker cable. We try $1 interconnects. I'll just say this, cables actually did make a difference in this case, and I'll leave it at that. Next, then we start moving up to higher end gears, some serious higher end gears, meaning that, you know, the front end setup, we're looking at about 10 Gs now. And I'll just skip everything. At the end, what I liked the most was with my Modwright LS100, my Moon W5.3 and Exosound E28. Now, as I said before, it was one level up, one level up. This time it's not. You're jumping 2 more levels up in terms of performance. So the gap in performance between budget gear and high-end gear with these speakers is like 5 levels. Usually with moderate speakers, you jump maybe 1 or 2 levels between very high-end gear and very budget gear, because they scale not too well. Well, they scale well, but not to the point where you're jumping 5 levels. So these, they scale like crazy. You treat it like a serious speaker, it will give you some serious result. In fact, I think my front end might not even be good enough for these speakers. Because on the internet, I've seen people driving it with audio research reference preamps, Macintosh 452s. Now you're looking at about what, $30,000 front end with these speakers, and I think, yeah, they definitely can benefit from even better equipment. But with what I have, I found it definitely very satisfactory. So what I'm trying to say is that the performance of these speakers really depends on what gear you use with them. So if you're the kind of person who bought it and tried it and say, meh, it's okay, forget it, I'm going to sell it, maybe the problem is your front end. Actually, no, the problem is your front end. Your room, of course, is very, very important, but until you give it some serious front end gear, you might want to give it a chance before you let them go. Why you should buy these speakers? All right, guys, let's think about this logically, okay? Let's take the 703, for example, LSIM, 400-ish right now. You buy it, you bring it home, you don't like it, you know what you do? You put it on the side and you go like, you know, maybe in the future when I get something better, front end, these speakers will shine to my taste. Or in the future, my taste will change and I will come to appreciate the non-metallic tweeter. So let's say you do that, okay? And after a while, when these speakers are no longer on the market, you can actually take it out and sell it. And manufacturers suggest the retail price $1,600. For you only $500. You might actually make money off this in the long term. I'm just saying, worst case, you sell for 300-ish, you lose $100. But for me, it's worth the gamble. Of course, that is assuming that you have the room and you have the extra funds for it. So what my point is, you cannot lose either way. You might actually win in the long run and make money out of this deal. So let's wrap it up. So usually I'm late to the party. Everybody has reviewed a certain gear and then Thomas shows up last minute, you know, when it's no longer interesting. This time I'm actually at the right time, because if I reviewed these speakers, what, 6 years ago, then I would be like, yeah, I think you should check it out, it's a decent speaker. But now it's no, you don't have to wait 6 years to get the deal of the century. You can go out right now to buy it. And with that, that's why I heavily recommend it. And I also gave you the logical reason why you cannot lose with this deal, right? You either can return it, or you can keep it and take the chance to make money off it, or just lose a little bit. But at least, instead of reading on the internet every day, you actually get a chance to listen to it at your place. So, okay guys, so with that, I'll see you next time.